Good morning, good afternoon. This is the second to the last lesson that we have for the fourth quarter of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. And today's discussion will be focusing on Latin American literature. So Latin American is part of South American continent. So it's the entire continent below United States of America. Okay? So you have probably enjoyed literary selections that have magic, yung may fantasy, suspension of belief, may cliffhanger, and all or you may be a fan of some of these, no? You may be some of these, and one of the oldest kinds of magic and fiction comes from Latin America. So despite being shrouded by political instability and turmoil, for much of the 20th century, Latin America has prevailed as an influential area for culture, history, and as well as creativity. What else? When the stock market collapsed in 1929, followed by the worldwide economic crisis, this effect rippled through Central and South America, for their colonizers had pulled back. Okay, so Europe, which is one of the main colonizers of Latin America, especially in the Caribbean area, was also economically challenged. Thus, there needed to be changes. Okay, that's why umalis sila, no? So, parang blessing in disguise na nagkaroon ng collapse sa stock market noong 1929 kasi napalayas or umalis, napilitang umalis ang mga colonizers. Eventually, the colonies in Latin America were given independence or were integrated into their mother country as a result of World War II. And as well as in 1960, there was another significant shift because there was a military rule over most of the Latin American countries. And that changed in the 1980s when democracy prevailed even throughout the colonies. Now, in the 21st century, multi-party states are very much dominant in the South and Central American areas or countries. So let's proceed. No, there's no doubt that Latin American literature has greatly contributed to the world literature. Sabi dyan, its turbulent history as a highly colonized region has brought to life some of the most passionate works of art through the desire of Latin Americans to speak and share about what had happened to them. So, itong Latin America somehow is related with African literature because they experience the same fate, no? Dumana sila ng parehas na experiences. No? They were colonized by the Western countries, no? Especially British colonizers, no? Or yung sa United Kingdom, as well as Mexico, Spain, Portuguese, or Portugal. Okay? What else? These experiences faced by Latin Americans have shown in their literature. Okay, their literature is characterized by mysticism, magic, uniqueness, raw creativity, and wonder. And it all started in the pre-Columbian Columbian literature of their times, when the ancient civilizations of the Aztecs and Mayans spread stories throughout the oral tradition, as well as their mythologies and religion practices or beliefs were then recorded after the European colonizers have arrived. What else? This makes you more inspired to look at the bright side of life rather than its negative side. So, somehow nakapagbigay yun ng positive outlook sa kanilang literature. If the Latin Americans were able to survive so much hurt and agony in their history, then you would be able to do so with your own daily struggles. So, it is a big lesson for each and every one of us, especially for the readers or students like you, no, that no matter what circumstances that you're facing or you're about to face, you can be able to surpass it. Okay, because that's what Latin American countries or nations are teaching us through their literature. And one of the most important outcomes of these desires is the concept of magic realism, where magic is included in a realist story as if it were a normal occurrence in daily life. No, in our literary pieces, no, yung mga palabas, teleseries, we have telefantasias, etc., etc., no. These were um, affected by the Latin American literature, no. Nagkaroon ng impact yung kanilang literature, yung kanilang culture, no, and traditions sa atin. when the colonizers somehow came in the Latin American before, no, or the conquistadores or conquistadors, which is focusedly known as Christopher Columbus, na isa sa mga kilalang conquistador, and si Bernal Diaz del Castillo. They wrote extensively of their experiences in Latin America. No, may mga nagsasabi, no, hindi naman si Columbus ang Columbus na Columbus ang nakapag-discover sa US, because even before, no, they have Mayan civilization, may Aztec civilization, baga it's already explored. Okay? Nga lang, nagdala lang talaga si Columbus ng malaking pagbabago sa Amerika nung kanya itong na-discover. Okay? What else? With regards to Latin American literature, we will be focusing on two things. Two isms, actually. No? Modernism and then yung postmodernism. But later on, we'll be discussing that. Kasi isa yun sa mga lessons na pag-aaralan natin. Or ito yung mga pinaka-lessons sa pag-aaralan natin. No? Kabahagi ito ng mga isms and isms na napag-aralan na natin before. But let's talk first about Latin America. Okay, colonial literature has influenced heavily by both mestizos and natives in Latin America, no. Yung literatura ng Latin America, Central, South America, no, ang may pinakamalaking bahagi diyan ay yung mga colonizers nila, syempre the mestizos as well as the natives, no. Yung magic, yung sinasabi natin kanina, no, na pagkakaroon nila ng belief with magical fictions, no, ito ay dulot or bunga ng kanilang mga kanilang mga ninuno, no, or their natives, no, as well as the realistic point of view in their literature. It was brought upon by the colonizers. In the 19th century, a new period emerged, which is the foundational fictions, were novels that were written in either the romantic or the naturalist tradition. Itong romantic or romanticism, ito yung na-discuss natin last time, no, from the previous video. Okay, and foundational fiction, ito yung pinaka naging kilalang period, no, sa Latin America noong 19th century. Latin Americans tried to come up with the idea of national identity and often focus on separating the indigenous from their colonizers. Given the fact that they had been colonized for so many years, no, it is important for these people, for these indigenous people, to look for their personal and national identity. They also criticized the dichotomy of being barbaric and being civilized. No, katulad natin mga Pilipino, no, we don't accept that we are being called as Indios, 'di ba? Kasi napakababa ng tingin noon if you're being called as Indios. So ganun din sa kanila. It was also in the 19th century that women were educated and their writings were published. So yung 19th century, napakalaki ang naging epekto noon sa kanila, no, because there has been a lot of changes that happened in their literature as well as in their society. It was also in this time, no, that one of these novels that is entitled Sab, published in 1841, which was written by Gertrudis Gomez de Avellaneda, which is a Cuban, and it is a novel that is romantic in nature but has subtle critics of the treatment of women in Cuba. So, nagkaroon ng pagbabago, no, from yung pagtingin sa mga babae bilang mga tagapagtrabaho lang sa loob ng tahanan, no, they were given hindi naman sobrang eksakto, no, na pagtingin sa lipunan, sa society, pero at least they were given the opportunity to learn, no, na makapagsulat, makapag-aral, and yung kanilang mga nilalatha, yung kanilang mga ginagawa will be published. Now, it is in the 19th century which is where a poetic movement called Modernismo or the Modernism came upon. No, it was by Nicaraguan poet Ruben Dario, whose work entitled was Azul. No, colonial literature was influenced heavily by both mestizos. Ito yung binabanggit natin kanina, no? Napakalaki na epekto nila, especially dahil malaki ang contribution ng Catholicism or ng Christianism during the time. Kasi ang mga colonizers, dala-dala nila tong cross. Kung paano dinala nila yun sa Pilipinas. No? What else? What is the history? Ito nga yun, sinasabi natin kanina, no? In the late 19th century, a new poetic movement called Modernismo came from Nicaraguan poet Ruben Dario. Please remember that. His work is entitled Azul, or Blue. And it was said to be the first Latin American literary movement which was recognized outside of the region and was also considered to be the first true Latin American literature, and it introduced critics of the society as of the moment and the flight of the indigenous Latin American citizen. So, yung movement na ginawa ni Ruben Dario, which is Modernismo, no, bakit ganun sir, Modernismo? It's because Spanish, either Spanish or Mexican or ano tong isa, Portuguese ang kanilang salita, no, sa Latin America. For most countries. What else? This movement create a subtle change sa literary sa literature during the 19th century sa kabuuan ng Latin America. It's also closely related to another movement called indigenismo or indigenism. Okay, one which is dedicated to the fostering of indigenous cultures and the injustices these cultures were suffering from. Okay, so ang modernismo, okay, it is a movement that acknowledges the people, okay, are no longer who they were, okay, during the time of colonization. And indigenismo is another movement that is dedicated in considering the indigenous people, the indigenous culture as humans, no, that suffered injustices, that suffered pressure, persecutions, struggles with their colonizers. Okay? What else? In the 1920s, particularly in Mexico, there was a lot of experimentation with avant-garde techniques or avant-garde techniques. The Mexican Revolution had inspired realist novels based on their experiences with the war. Kung nabanggit natin last time, no, sa Middle East, no, it's a war zone area. Same thing with Latin America. No, dito natin makita yung mga bansa, no, na either meron silang mga private armies, no, yung mga mayayamang tao rito, or yung mga colonizers na nanatili, no, the neo-colonialistic at dito yung neo-colonialism nandun pa rin, no, it still lingers within the society, no. Kumbaga napaka chaotic pa ng sitwasyon nila during the 1920s or the 1900s. Okay, what else? Here comes the Mexican Revolution. It would only be in the 1940s when another literary technique was finally formed, and one that was famously associated with Latin America. When novelist and musician Alejo Carpentier, please remember the name as well, Alejo Carpentier, coined the terminology L'Oreal Maravilloso, which literally means marvelous realism, and it is believed that this technique became the precursor of the concept magic realism. So pag sinabi nating magic realism, class, isa lang yung pinapatungkulan nito, no. We are in a society, say for example, no, tayo ay nasa middle class. Okay? Pero yung mga nasa upper class natin, no, they're considered to be fairies, no, they have magic, they have power, no. Pero tayo, mga ano lang tayo, mga abang lipunan lang tayo, no. Tayo yung mga walang kalakasan, kapangyarihan, no? And then there are people below us, no? We call them slaves, no? And they're the one that serves us, or is the one that is serving or are serving to us, no? So that's magic realism, no? You add magic, you add grandeur, you add powers or superpowers with this realistic situation. No, makikita natin yan sa mga palabas dito sa Pilipinas. No, we can see that, no, kung napanood niyo Atlantica, 'di ba? Ano pa? Darna, ano pa ba? Ano pa ba yung mga may magic, no? Mahika, no, sana ibalik tong mga palabas na to. Mulawin versus Ravenna. Okay? So, pagka ito yung reality, tayo, tao, tapos nabubuhay tayo, and here comes magic, no? Encantadia, may mga mahika, may mga kapangyarihan. So, that's magic realism. Okay, now, what is postmodernism on the other hand? Now, postmodernism was originated in architecture. And also, postmodernism simply rejected the modernist way of doing things, trying to make things new or avant-garde. No, yung parang ang ganda-ganda, sobrang kakaiba, no? That's the purpose of modernismo or modernism to provide a newer version of something that is already existing in the society. Say for example nga, no, yung lipunan natin. Okay? And then pinapaganda niya, pinapabongga niya, no, avant-garde, tag dito, ginagawa niyang kakaiba, no? That's modernism, no? Si postmodernism naman, sinasabi niya, no, it's not. Sabi diyan, modernism has always been about rejecting tradition and trying to explore other ways of doing things to see where no man has ever gone before. Now, ang purpose ni modernism is to reject the tradition. Tanggalin natin yan, no? Hindi yan mahalaga. Ang mahalaga ay tingnan natin, no? Mag-explore tayo ng bagong bagay. We explore something new. We look at different perspective. Let's look at something that has not been yet explored or hindi pa nakikita ng iba. Na magbigay tayo ng panibagong taste or panibagong bagay or something new to the table. Okay? So that's modernism. It's much associated with the novelty of doing something to create something unique. Kaya nga 'di ba yung mga magic diyan yan nanggaling sa modernism. Pagkakaroon ng mga kapangyarihan, superpowers, no, yung isang society na punong-puno ng mga magic, no, yung genie, no, diyan nanggaling yan sa modernistic literature, modernism literature. What else? Modernism also explored possibilities and individuality. But postmodernism was in contrast to this. Sinasabi ng postmodernism, no, that's not the best way. Oops, may nag-Facebook. Char. Okay, so, noong oras na Facebook pa, 1:30 na. Ayan, postmodernism declined it. No, it is not correct. It is a skeptical interpretation of culture, art, history, architecture, and literature. Now, what does it mean to be skeptical? No, sabi diyan, it means that there is always an air of critic and emphasis on a certain work of art. Okay? So, mababasa natin yan dito. No? Here, the postmodernist, the postmodernist aims to look at the variety rather than the ornamentation or the novelty. No, tinitingnan niya yung variety kesa sa ganda, sa kumbaga hindi siya tumitingin sa design. No, tumitingin siya sa quality. No? What else? It completely rejects its predecessor modernism on the basis that it also rejects the idea of totality, unity, or being comprehensive. In the 1970s, the literature of silence, according to Arab-American scholar Ihab Hassan, has begun with the works of Marquis de Sade, Franz Kafka, Samuel Beckett, Ernest Hemingway, which is a famous writer, and so much more. And these works are known to focus on ontology, or the nature of being, the concept of becoming, existing, and living as a person. No? Si postmodernism, it implores you to make something new that moves beyond just the act of product over itself, or it asks you to exist and to become the art. Sinasabi ni postmodernism, tayo ka dyan, no? And we will define you. Okay? Ikaw yan. You are an art. You are a literature. no? Magpakita ka ng isang tula, magpakita ka ng isang kwento, no? And we will critic it. I-critic natin 'yan depende sa kabuuan niya, no? Depende sa kung paano 'yan na buo. No? Sinasabi ni postmodernism, tanggalin natin yung mga design, tanggalin natin yung mga display, tanggalin natin yung mga powers, tanggalin natin yung ganda. No? Tingnan natin 'yan as it is. No, kumbaga, pag isang modelo, no, titingnan mo, paano mo masabi na maganda yung isang modelo? Tanggalin mo lahat ng makeup. Tanggalin mo yung damit. Hindi naman tanggalin yung damit, no. Alisin mo yung magagandang damit, ang magagarang damit. No? Bigyan mo siya ng maayos, ng normal na damit. No, that's how you're going to critic a specific model. The same thing with literature. Alisin mo lahat ng mga pa-effect dyan, alisin mo lahat ng mga pampaganda or pampahusay, no, mga pa-effect, no, mga ganyan, alisin mo yan, no, and then we are going to critic just the way it is. Si Gabriel Garcia Marquez is one of the famous Colombian novelists. He's also a short story writer, a journalist and screenwriter, and he is also a Nobel Prize winner. And throughout his career, he was known as Gabo and had written some of the most endearing and memorable stories of magic realism in Latin American fiction. 100 Years of Solitude, Love in Time of Cholera, and The Autumn of the Patriarch. He was also a staunch critic of Colombian politics and foreign policies. So, sino to si Gabriel Garcia Marquez? Si Gabriel Garcia Marquez is the author of 100 Years of Solitude. No? And here's the link for your activity as well as for your attendance. No, what I'll be doing is I'll be sending this link as well. Ilalagay natin yan sa comment section or sa description ng video. No, you just have to click that link so that it will direct you to the excerpt of the book. Ito kasi isang mahabang kwento to, no? This entire story, 100 Years of Solitude. Now, all you need to do is to read the excerpt. Ilang page lang naman yan kung susumahin, no? Sa book, ito ay 3 pages lang, if I'm not mistaken. No? And what you're going to do is you're going to answer the following questions. Number 1, what did Jose Arcadio Buendia find so fascinating about the instruments he bought despite his poverty? Jose Arcadio Buendia is one of the characters in the story. Next, number 2, what is unique about the way the first chapter of the novel 100 Years of Solitude is written? And what you're going to do is you're going to take a look for the modernistic approach of this story. Okay? Is it modernism or postmodernism? Okay? What else? Another notable author from this literature is Sara de Ibanez. She's a poet from Uruguay, and she has won many literary awards during her career and had written some of the most famous collections of poetry in Latin America. Siya naman yung nagsulat ng susunod nating piece, no, which is Island on the Earth. No, andyan din yung link sa itaas. No, from jbeilharz.de. poetas/ibanez/islas-e.html. So, pag clinic nyo yung link na yan, nasa description din yan, meron kayo may kitang English version dito sa kabila. Tapos, yung isa naman ay, if not mistaken, Portuguese na version yun nandyan. Actually, 3 tula to. Yung isa ay The Mythical Founding of Buenos Aires, but I have not included that in this video or in this lesson kasi madami na yung magiging activity ninyo just for this video. Okay? So, after reading the poem, you have to answer the following questions as well. What does the writer mean with the last 2 lines of the poem? And what did the poem supply about the founding of Buenos Aires? So, please remember, class, no, that we have, ayan. Sige, wag na lang pala sagutan yung pangalawa, no, yung kay Sara Ibanez. Ito na lang yung sasagutan nyo, itong part na to, yung sa unang activity. So, all you need to do is to answer the questions, number 1 and 2. Okay, kasabay ng inyong pangalan and then yung section that will be considered as part of your attendance. Okay? So, what else? What else I'm missing? Let's define again, no? Ano yung pinagkaiba ng modernism sa postmodernism? Again, pag sinabi nating modernism, okay, meron siyang mga ang focus ng theme or ang focus ng punta tayo dito. Hilong na ba? Hilong na ba? Ayan. Ang focus ng modernism is to give a fresh view. Okay, magbigay ng panibagong tag dito, panibagong something new or panibagong approach, no, sa isang literary piece or sa literature. Ano ba yung approach na yan? Ano ba yung bago na yan? It gives new taste, no? Nagkakaroon ng mga designs, no? Paano ba yung design? Ang hirap i-describe, no? Paano ba? Pag sinabi nating modernism class, para mas mapadali, no? Imagine that these people experience suffering, no? Pinag-aralan natin yung kanilang history. These people experience troubles from their colonizers and so on and so forth. And what they did is they incorporate those sufferings that they experience, okay, and then they magically translate it into modernism. Okay? So, para mapadali, ganun na lang yung definition natin, no? Given the fact that they experience a lot of struggles, whatnot, no, what they did is they magically put fantasy, no, cliffhanger, magic in their literature. Kumbaga, pinaganda nila yung isang experience or yung isang di magandang experience through the help or through the aid of magic. Okay, what else? When we're talking about postmodernism, on the other hand, it says that modernism is not correct. No? Punta tayo sa postmodernism. Ayan. Sinasabi ni postmodernism, no, mali yun. You do not have to include or you do not have to put magic, skepticism, or fantasies dun sa isang literary piece or sa isang sitwasyon, no? But not to the point na naging realistic na siya because that's realism naman. No, but the idea of postmodernism is to remove skepticism, no? And all you need to do is to critic or put an emphasis on a certain work of literature, no? You have to critic the way how it is. Okay? What else? You have to take away the ornamentation, the grandeur, the novelty, no, yung ganda, alisin mo yon, and you have to critic it, you have to read it, you have to analyze and interpret it the way how it was written and the way why it was written. Okay? So, tinatanggal niya yung totality, yung unity, yung comprehensiveness. You take that out and you focus on the text, you focus on how it was written, you focus on the literature itself or on the literary piece itself. No? So, ano yung pinaka-way natin, no? Paano ba natin ito magagamit sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay? No? Ang matutunan natin sa modernism is there will always be magic in our lives, no? We will always come across in a situation na we don't know what to do, but here comes something magical na mangyayari that will turn our situation around, no? Kumbaga, wow, ano nangyari? Bakit ganon? Biglang nagkaroon ng miracle, nagkaroon ng magic, nagkaroon ng fantastical event, no? That's one thing that we can learn, no? Diba, tumilaok na, no? That's one thing that we can learn from modernism. But on postmodernism, no, pasimplihin natin. Kaya ang aral na ibinibigay niya sa atin is, you are already enough. You don't have to put make-ups, you don't have to act like you're rich, like you are good, because you are already good enough. Okay? So I hope that you have learned something today from today's discussion. If you still wanted to know more about modernism and postmodernism, you may visit a specific website. Where is it? Just save it. Ayan, if you wanted to know more about the fascinating literature of Latin America, you may go to flavorwire.com. Flavor from the word itself, no, yung FLAVOR, then wire, WIRE.com, and then just search for great works of Latin American fictions. And this website lists more Latin American works of fiction focusing on modernism and postmodernism. Or you may also browse, no, from the internet or search for Latin American writers, and they will be able to guide you, okay, for an in-depth definition with modernism and postmodernism. Or um, you may just simply talk to me, no, sir, medyo nalilito po kami with modernism and postmodernism. Would you be able to rediscuss it with us virtually? Then I'll be more than happy to do so. Just set a specific schedule. Okay, I hope anyway that you've learned today's lesson. I'm very much grateful for each and every one of you. Okay, just you have to remember not to answer the question that follows kanina, yung question for your asa na yan? For your attendance. Oh, don't forget to answer these two questions. If you don't have any other questions for me, that's it for today. Thank you very much, and always stay safe. Take care. God bless you, and again, goodbye.